I stood in the hospital room, my hand trembling as I held the positive pregnancy test, and watched my husband of 15 years, my high school sweetheart, the man I'd given up everything for, pack his designer suitcase with clothes I'd ironed, folded with the care of someone who still believed love mattered. Jake, I whispered, my voice breaking. I'm pregnant. He didn't even turn around, just kept folding that stupid cashmere sweater his mother had bought him. That's nice, Claire. Listen, Mom needs me to come stay with her for a few weeks. Her knee surgery, remember? I did remember. I also remembered that his mother lived in a penthouse with a full-time nurse and had explicitly told me she didn't want Jake there, cluttering up her recovery. But I'd learned years ago not to challenge Jake's lies. They multiplied like hydras. Jake, please, can we just talk about God, Claire, you're so needy lately. He finally looked at me, and the contempt in his eyes made my knees weak. This is exactly why I need space. You've let yourself go, you're always whining about something, and now you want to trap me with a baby? How convenient. The words hit like physical blows. I was 33 years old, 50 pounds heavier than my wedding day, with crow's feet from smiling through his mother's insults and gray hairs from budgeting his gambling debts. I'd put him through law school by working 2 jobs, deferred my own dreams of becoming an architect, and somewhere along the way, I'd disappeared. Trap you? The pregnancy test fell from my fingers. Jake, we've been married for a mistake, he said flatly, zipping his suitcase. Honestly, I should have gone to prom with Madison like I planned. She's a neurosurgeon now, makes $500,000 a year, and she still looks amazing. Madison. The name was a knife between my ribs. Madison Fletcher, my former best friend, the girl who'd asked Jake to prom first, the girl he'd originally said yes to before I, in a moment of desperate teenage jealousy, had convinced him to go with me instead by lying that Madison was going with someone else. It was the first domino in a chain of choices that had led me here. Broke, pregnant, and watching the man I'd restructured my entire life around walk out the door. I want a divorce, Jake said, pulling his wedding ring off and dropping it on the dresser. It bounced once, twice, then rolled under the bed. Neither of us moved to retrieve it. My lawyer will be in touch. Oh, and Mom's name is on this apartment lease, so you'll need to be out by the end of the month. The door closed behind him with a soft click that was somehow worse than a slam. I stood there for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then I walked to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, really looked, and saw a ghost. Where had I gone? The girl who'd gotten a full scholarship to Cornell's architecture program? The girl who'd won state championships in debate? The girl who'd had dreams bigger than the shoebox apartment and a man who couldn't remember my favorite color? I picked up the pregnancy test from where it had fallen and stared at those 2 pink lines. A baby. Jake's baby. A child who would grow up watching their mother fade, just like I'd watched my own mother fade for my father, who'd left when I was 12 for a younger woman and never looked back. No, I said to my reflection, not this time. But what choice did I have? I had $600 in my checking account, no degree, a resume with a 15-year gap, and a baby on the way. I'd given up my scholarship for Jake, moved across the country for his law school, worked myself to exhaustion for his dreams. The crushing weight of it all pressed down on me. I slid down the bathroom wall, my heart hammering too fast, each breath shorter than the last. The edges of my vision went dark, and distantly I thought, this is it. This is how I go out. Pregnant, abandoned, and alone on a bathroom floor. Then there was nothing. I woke up to the sound of Britney Spears. Not just any Britney. Baby One More Time, blasting from what sounded like a clock radio. I sat up, disoriented, my head pounding, and looked around at a room I hadn't seen in 15 years. My childhood bedroom. Posters of NSYNC and Leonardo DiCaprio. A desktop computer with a bulky CRT monitor. A pile of textbooks with junior year written on the spines. And on my nightstand, a flip phone showing the date, September 15th, 2007. I was 17 years old again. My hands flew to my stomach, flat, toned from track practice. No, baby. I ran to the mirror and nearly screamed. The face staring back at me was my teenage face, unlined and bright, with clear skin and shiny hair and everything that had slowly eroded over 15 years of putting everyone else first. This isn't real, I whispered. I'm dead. I'm dying on a bathroom floor, and this is my brain misfiring, but I remembered everything. Both lives. The girl I was now, excited about homecoming and worried about the SAT, and the woman I'd been, dying on a bathroom floor at 33, pregnant and abandoned. I remembered it all. Jake Morrison. We'd started dating 3 weeks ago. He'd asked me to be his girlfriend at a football game, and I'd said yes because he was popular and handsome and showed interest in me. But we hadn't really connected yet. There was still time to change everything. And prom, that was still 8 months away. The night I'd lied to Jake about Madison having another date, the night that had set me on the path to destruction. My phone buzzed. A text from Madison. Study session at my place for the calc test? My mom's making snickerdoodles. Madison, my best friend since 3rd grade. The girl I'd betray in 8 months out of jealous insecurity. The girl who'd gone on to become a neurosurgeon while killed myself through slow self-sacrifice? I looked around my room, at the acceptance letter to Cornell's summer architecture program on my desk, at the debate team trophy on my shelf, at the girl in the mirror who still had time to choose differently, and made a decision. I wasn't going to make the same mistakes. This time, I was going to choose myself. The next 3 weeks were strange. I walked through my junior year like a ghost, watching my younger self's life unfold while armed with the knowledge of where each choice would lead. I knew which teachers would write the best recommendation letters. I knew which colleges offered the best financial aid packages. I knew which investments would pay off and which friends would stand by me. But mostly I knew about Jake. I watched him in the hallways with new eyes. The way he casually borrowed money from friends and never paid it back. The way he flirted with 3 different girls in one lunch period. The way he copied homework without shame. All the red flags I'd ignored as a naive 17-year-old were glaring neon signs now. Earth to Claire. Madison waved a hand in front of my face during study session. You've been staring at that calculus problem for 10 minutes. Sorry, I said, shaking my head. Just thinking. About Jake? Madison's smile was a little forced, and I knew why. She'd liked Jake first, had planned to ask him to homecoming, and then I'd swooped in, flattered by his attention, not realizing, not caring, that my best friend had feelings for him. Actually, I said slowly, I think I'm going to break up with him. Madison's eyes widened. What? Why? You two seem so happy. Did we? I thought back. No, I'd seemed happy. Jake had seemed entertained. There was a difference. He's not right for me, I said. We want different things. That was the understatement of 2 lifetimes. I broke up with Jake the next day. He took it better than I expected, which is to say he barely reacted at all, just shrugged and said, cool, whatever, before walking away to flirt with a cheerleader. No heartbreak, no fighting for me, nothing. God, I'd wasted 15 years on that. Madison was sympathetic in that carefully neutral way of someone trying not to show they're thrilled. Are you okay? She asked, squeezing my hand. I'm perfect, I said, and meant it. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. Jake mentioned before we broke up that he thought you were pretty. I think he might ask you to homecoming. It was a lie, but a kind one. Madison's face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? Oh my God, Claire, you're not upset? Not even a little, I said honestly. You two would actually be good together. They wouldn't be. I knew from my first life that Jake and Madison had gone on exactly 3 dates after I died, and Madison had dumped him when she discovered he'd been lying about getting into Harvard. But that was her lesson to learn, and it would teach her to spot users early, a skill that would serve her well in Samantas, medical school. Besides, I had bigger plans than worrying about Jake Morrison. I threw myself into my studies with the focused intensity of someone who knew exactly how much was riding on the next 18 months. I took extra AP classes, joined the debate team again, and spent my weekends at Cornell's summer architecture program, soaking up everything I'd given up the first time around. My parents noticed the change. "You're so driven lately," my mom said one night over dinner. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's great," I said. "I just realized I was wasting time on things that don't matter." What I didn't say, I was racing against the clock. In my first life, my dad had died of a heart attack during my freshman year of college. Undiagnosed heart disease that could have been caught if he'd gotten the screening his doctor had recommended. He hadn't gone because money was tight and he didn't want to worry us. This time, I made sure he went. I secretly Googled his symptoms, left printouts about heart disease on the kitchen table, and finally broke down crying and told him I was terrified of losing him. It was manipulation, but it worked. He got the screening. They found the blockage. He had surgery. He lived. "You saved my life, sweetheart," he said from his hospital bed, squeezing my hand. "How did you know?" "Just a feeling," I whispered, squeezing back. One disaster averted. So many more to prevent. By the time prom season rolled around in the spring of 2008, I'd transformed my entire life. I had a 4.7 GPA, had won state championships in debate, and had been accepted to Cornell with a full scholarship. I'd also lost 15 pounds, not through obsessive dieting like I would the first time around, but through genuinely enjoying track and eating properly instead of stress eating over Jake. I looked good, I felt better, and I had absolutely no date to prom. "You have to come," Madison insisted. She was going with Jake, just as I'd orchestrated, and from the tight smile on her face during lunch, I gathered it wasn't going well. "We can go as a group. Sarah and Jennifer are going stag too." "I don't know," I said. Prom's expensive and I'm trying to save for Unni. "For what? You have a full scholarship, Claire. It's our senior prom. You'll regret it if you don't go." Would I? In my first life, prom had been magical. Or so I'd thought at 17. Jake had rented a limo, bought me a corsage, and told me I was beautiful. We'd danced under twinkle lights and he'd kissed me and promised we'd be together forever. Then, at the after party, he'd gotten drunk and made out with another girl while I was in the bathroom. I'd forgiven him, of course. Made excuses. Blamed myself for not being attentive enough. "Fine," I said, "but I'm not spending a fortune on a dress." Madison grinned. "Leave that to me." The dress she loaned me was stunning, a deep emerald green silk that made my eyes look impossibly bright and hugged my new, athletic figure perfectly. I did my own hair and makeup, having learned from 15 years of YouTube tutorials that hadn't existed yet, and when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked confident, self-assured, like someone who knew exactly who she was and what she was worth. "Oh, honey," my mom said, tearing up. "You look like a princess." "I feel like a queen," I said, and kissed her cheek. The prom was held at a historic hotel downtown, all crystal chandeliers and marble floors. I walked in with Madison, Sarah, and Jennifer, my true friends, the girls I'd neglected in my first life in favor of orbiting Jake, and felt a sense of rightness I'd never experienced before. "There's Jake," Madison muttered, nodding toward the punch table. He was laughing too loud with his friends, his tux already rumpled. "He's been weird all week. I think he's going to break up with me." "Then break up with him first," I said. "Trust me, you're too good for him." She looked at me, really looked at me, and something shifted in her expression. "You know what? You're right, I am." She marched over to Jake, said something that made his face go red, and walked away. When she returned, she was grinning. "Best decision ever. Now let's dance." We did. We danced in a circle, all four of us, laughing and singing along to Umbrella and No One, and all the songs that had defined 2008. No boys, no drama, just us. And then the DJ announced, "All right, Lakeside High, it's time to crown your prom queen and king." In my first life, I hadn't even been nominated. I'd been too focused on Jake. too invisible outside of being his girlfriend. But this time I'd been visible. I'd led the debate team to states. I'd tutored half the senior class in calculus. I'd been me. Your prom king is Tyler Chen. Tyler jogged up to the stage, grinning. He was a good guy, student body president, headed to Stanford. In my first life, I'd barely known him. And your prom queen is Claire Mitchell. The room erupted in applause. I stood frozen, Madison shrieking and pushing me toward the stage. This wasn't possible. This hadn't happened before. But then, nothing had happened like before, because I'd changed everything. I walked to the stage in a daze. Tyler placed the crown on my head, and the DJ started playing Forever Young. Tyler offered his hand with a smile. "May I have this dance, Your Majesty?" "You may," I said, laughing. We swayed in the center of the floor, everyone watching, and I caught sight of Jake at the edge of the crowd. He was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before, regret, mixed with something that looked like longing. Too late, I thought. Years too late. "You look happy," Tyler said. "I am," I said. "I really, really am." As we danced, I spotted Madison filming on her digital camera, tears streaming down her face, so proud of her best friend. Sarah and Jennifer were jumping up and down. My parents were in Essen. The parent section, my dad healthy and strong, my mom crying happy tears. This was my moment. Mine, not as someone's girlfriend or someone's wife or someone's mother. Just as Claire Mitchell, 17-year-old girl who'd chosen herself. The song ended, the crowd cheered. And I knew with absolute certainty that I'd done it. I'd rewritten my story. The weeks after prom blurred together in a montage of lasts. Last day of classes, last debate tournament, graduation, where I gave the salutatorian speech about second chances and choosing yourself, which made my mom cry and my dad beam with pride. Jake approached me at the graduation party, drink in hand, looking sheepish. "Hey, Claire, congrats on Cornell." "Thanks," I said neutrally. "Listen, I've been thinking." He ran a hand through his hair. "Maybe we made a mistake. Breaking up, I mean. We were good together." "Were we?" I wanted to ask. "Or was I just convenient? A sure thing who made you feel important?" "I don't think so," I said instead. "But good luck at community college." He flinched. In my first life, I'd paid for him to go to a private university, taken out loans in my name, worked 2 jobs. He'd failed out after 3 semesters and blamed me for distracting him. "Right, well, maybe I'll see you around." "Maybe," I said, knowing I wouldn't. Madison appeared at my elbow as Jake walked away. "Was he bothering you?" "Nope, just saying goodbye." Good riddance. "Hey, did you see they're doing an article on the prom queen for the school paper? You're basically famous." "Hardly," I laughed, but she pulled out a copy. And there it was, a full-page spread with photos from prom night. Me in my green dress, crown sparkling under the lights. The headline read, "Claire Mitchell, from debate champion to prom queen, a senior's journey to self-discovery." The article detailed my academic achievements, my debate victories, my acceptance to Cornell. It quoted teachers saying I was an inspiration and the kind of student who makes you remember why you became an educator. It mentioned that I'd gone to prom without a date and won queen anyway, proving that you don't need a prince to become royalty. I read it 3 times, tears blurring the words. "You okay?" Madison asked softly. "Yeah, sir," I said, just thinking about how different things could have been. If I'd stayed with Jake. If I'd made him my whole world. If I'd never gotten this second chance. "But they're not different," Madison said. "This is real. This is your life. And it's amazing." She was right. This was real. The crown was real. The scholarship was real. The friends and the pride and the future stretching ahead of me, all real. I'd saved myself. Cornell was everything I remembered and nothing like I remembered. In my first life, I'd deferred my acceptance, planning to start after Jake finishes law school. I never went. The deferment expired, and with it, my dreams. This time, I moved into my dorm in Oz. August with Madison, we'd requested to be roommates, unpacked my debate trophies and prom crown, and stood at the window of our room overlooking the engineering quad with a sense of profound possibility. "We're really here," Madison breathed. "We made it." "We did," I said, and silently added, "again." The first semester was hard. College was harder than I remembered, or maybe I was just rusty after 15 years. But I had advantages my classmates didn't. I knew which professors were the best mentors. I knew which classes would actually matter for my career. I knew how to balance work and study and sleep, having learned the hard way what happened when you didn't. Most importantly, I knew how to spot the Jake Morrisons of the world. There were several. The charming guy in my intro to architecture class who borrowed my notes and never returned them. I said no the second time. The guy at the party who pressured me to drink more. I left. The TA who made uncomfortable comments about my appearance. I reported him. I had no tolerance for red flags anymore. I'd paid too high a price the first time. By sophomore year, I'd made a name for myself in the architecture program. My designs were bold, innovative, combining classical techniques with modern sustainability. Professors started using my projects as examples. Firms reached out about internships. And then, in the spring of 2010, everything changed. I was at an architecture symposium in Manhattan, presenting my design for a sustainable urban housing project when a woman approached me afterward. She was in her 60s, elegant in a gray suit, with sharp eyes that reminded me of someone I couldn't quite place. "Claire Mitchell," she said. "I'm Catherine Morrison. That was an impressive presentation." Morrison. The name hit me like ice water. Jake's mother was named Catherine Morrison, but this couldn't be. "I'm the founder of Morrison and Associates Architecture," she continued, "one of the largest firms in the Northeast, and I'd like to offer you a summer internship." I stared at her. Morrison and Associates was legendary, the firm that had designed half of Manhattan's skyline. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. But Morrison, Jake's last name. "Are you?" I swallowed. "Is there any relation to Jake Morrison?" Her expression flickered. "My nephew. Why?" Nephew, not son. I'd gotten it wrong, or rather, Jake had lied. He'd always said his mother was some wealthy socialite, but I'd never met her in my first life. She'd been conveniently traveling during our entire relationship. Now I understood why. "We dated briefly in high school," I said carefully. "It ended poorly." Catherine's lips thinned. "I can imagine. Jake has always been troubled. His mother, my sister, enables his worst impulses. I've tried to help, but—" She shook her head. "Mum, the point is, you're not Jake. Your work is extraordinary, and I'd like to mentor you, if you're interested." I thought about it. About how in my first life, Jake had tried to leverage his connections to get into architecture school, claiming his wealthy mother would get him a job at a top firm. It had been another lie, one of thousands, but this was real. Catherine Morrison was real. Her offer was real, and I'd earned it on my own merit. "I'm very interested," I said. That summer internship turned into a job offer, then a position after graduation. By the time I was 25, the age I'd married Jake the first time around, I was a junior partner at Morrison and Associates, had designed 3 major buildings in Manhattan, and had been featured in Architectural Digest. I was also single, happy, and financially stable. I didn't forget about Jake exactly. It was more that he became irrelevant, a cautionary tale I told myself on bad days, a reminder of the life I'd escaped. But the universe has a sense of humor. I was 32, a year younger than I'd been when I died the first time, when I saw him again. I was at a gallery opening for a new museum I'd designed, champagne in hand, surrounded by admirers and press, when Madison grabbed my arm. "Don't look now," she hissed. But Jake Morrison just walked in. I looked. He'd aged poorly. 15 years had added weight to his frame, thinned his hair, and etched lines of bitterness around his mouth. He was wearing an ill-fitting suit and had the desperate air of someone trying to network their way into relevance. "What's he doing here?" I asked. "According to the invite list, he's a +1. Came with some lawyer from his firm. Madison, now a successful neurosurgeon, as she'd been destined to be, made a face. Apparently, he never made partner. Still an associate after 10 years. I felt a flicker of something that might have been pity. In my first life, I'd propped him up, made excuses for him, sacrificed my own success to fund his failures. Without me, he'd had to face his own mediocrity. Dr. Fletcher, a reporter approached with a camera. Can we get a photo of you and Ms. Mitchell together? The best friend duo who both made it big? We posed, grinning, Madison's arm around my waist. In the background, I saw Jake watching. His expression was difficult to read. Surprise, regret, something uglier that might have been envy. After the photo, he approached. Claire, he said. Wow, you look incredible. Thank you, I said politely, the way you'd thank a stranger. Saw the article about your building in the Times, really impressive. He was trying for casual and landing somewhere near desperate. Listen, I was wondering if maybe we could grab coffee sometime? Catch up? Madison made a choking sound. I don't think so, I said. But it was nice seeing you, Jake. Come on, Claire. For old time's sake? We were good together once. Were we? I wanted to ask. When? When you forgot our prom date in that other life? When you copied my homework and borrowed my money? When you walked out on me, pregnant and broke? But I didn't say any of that, because this Jake didn't know about that life. This Jake had gone to prom with Madison, been dumped when she discovered his lies, scraped his way through community college and a third-tier law school, and spent 15 years being exactly what he was, mediocre. We were never good together, I said. We dated for 3 months in high school. You barely remember my favorite color. Purple, he said quickly. It's blue, I said. It's always been blue. His face fell. Behind him, I saw Catherine Morrison watching our exchange with an expression of grim satisfaction. Good luck with your career, I told Jake, and turned back to Madison and the reporters and the life I'd built without him. As I walked away, I heard him say something to his colleague, something bitter and angry about women who think they're too good for you and what she used to be like in high school. But I didn't care, because I knew something he didn't. I knew who I'd been in that other life, the girl who'd made him the center of her universe, the woman who'd sacrificed everything for a man who couldn't even remember her birthday, the ghost who'd faded away until there was nothing left but regret. And I knew who I was now. The girl who'd gone to prom alone and won queen, the woman who'd built an empire on her own terms, the architect who'd designed her own future, brick by brick, choice by choice. 5 years later, I stood on the stage at the American Institute of Architects convention, accepting the gold medal, the highest honor in American architecture. At 37, I was the youngest woman ever to receive it. The ballroom was packed. Catherine Morrison sat in the front row, beaming like a proud mother. Madison was there with her wife and twins. My parents were there, my dad healthy and strong at 65, my mom crying happy tears as usual. I want to thank everyone who believed in me, I said into the microphone. My mentors, my friends, my family, but mostly I want to thank my 17-year-old self, who made the hardest choice of her life, to choose herself. The audience applauded, not understanding the weight of those words. Not knowing about the other life, the first life, the life where I'd chosen wrong and paid for it with everything I was. Someone once told me I'd regret not going to prom, I continued, that I'd regret putting my dreams first, that I'd regret staying single, staying focused, staying true to myself. But the only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. More applause. I saw Catherine nodding, Madison wiping her eyes. So, to any young woman out there who's being told to make herself smaller, to sacrifice her dreams for someone else's comfort, to dim her light so others don't feel inadequate, don't. Go to prom alone if that's what it takes. Wear the crown, build the empire. Choose yourself every single time. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, at the reception, a young woman approached me, maybe 22, in a cheap dress, eyes bright with determination. Ms. Mitchell, she said nervously, I just wanted to say thank you. I just broke up with my boyfriend because he wanted me to turn down a fellowship in Tokyo, and your speech made me feel like I made the right choice. I took her hands in mine. You did, trust me. The fellowship will still be there in the morning. Bad boyfriends don't get better with time. She laughed, relieved, and walked away lighter. I watched her go and thought about the girl I'd been in that first life. 17 and insecure, making choices out of fear instead of hope. Giving up Cornell for a boy who'd forget our anniversary. Building a life on sand and calling it love. That girl had died on a bathroom floor at 33, pregnant and alone, having never lived a single day for herself. But this girl, this woman I'd become, had gone to prom alone and won queen. Had chosen herself over and over again until choosing herself became as natural as breathing. Had built a life so full and rich and meaningful that the idea of sacrificing it for anyone seemed absurd. Penny for your thoughts? Catherine appeared at my elbow with champagne. Just thinking about second chances, I said. You've certainly made the most of yours. She clinked her glass against mine. I'm proud of you, Claire. Not just for what you've accomplished, but for who you've become. I'm proud of me too, I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. That night, I went home to my penthouse apartment, the one I'd bought with my own money, decorated to my own taste, filled with my own things. I put my gold medal on the mantle next to my prom crown, those twin symbols of the girl I'd been and the woman I'd become. And I thought about Jake, wherever he was, working his mediocre job, living his mediocre life, wondering what might have been if he'd been a better person. I thought about the other Claire, the first Claire who'd loved him and lost herself and died with regrets. And I thought about me, this me, the Claire who'd been given the rarest gift imaginable, the chance to start over and choose differently. Thank you, I whispered to that woman on the bathroom floor across time and space and reality. Thank you for holding on long enough to give me this chance. The apartment was silent. But somewhere, in another life or another world or just in my heart, I felt her smile. She was free now. We both were. I'd gone to prom alone and won queen, but more than that, I'd won myself. And in the end, that was the only crown that mattered. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing with interview requests and congratulations. I made coffee in my designer kitchen, took my time responding to messages, and checked my calendar for the day. A meeting with a client about a new sustainable housing project, lunch with Madison to celebrate, dinner with my parents. A full life, a chosen life. A life where I was the protagonist of my own story, not a supporting character in someone else's. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Hi, is this Claire Mitchell, the architect? A young woman's voice, nervous. Yes, this is she. Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry to bother you, but I got your number from your firm's website, and I had to call. I saw your speech last night. The one about choosing yourself? Yes, I prompted gently. I'm getting married in 3 months. To my high school boyfriend. And I have this fellowship to study marine biology in Australia, and he said I have to choose, and I was going to turn it down because I love him and I don't want to lose him, but then I saw your speech and she was crying now. What do I do? I closed my eyes and saw myself at 17, at 23, at 33. All the versions of me who'd chosen wrong and right and wrong again until I'd learned the lesson that had saved my life. What's your name? I asked. Emily. Emily, I'm going to tell you something I wish someone had told me when I was your age. If he loves you, he'll want you to go to Australia. He'll celebrate your success. He'll be proud of you. And if he doesn't do those things, then he doesn't love you. He loves the version of you that makes him feel important. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, my mom said the same thing. Your mom is right. And Emily, in 10 years, you won't remember his name, but you'll remember whether you went to Australia or not. How do you know? Because I've lived it, I said. Both ways. We talked for 20 more minutes. I told her about Cornell and Morrison and Associates and Prom Queen and all the choices that had led me here. I didn't tell her about the rebirth. Some things were too strange to share, but I told her enough. When we hung up, she was still crying, but her voice was stronger. I'm going to Australia, she said. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Thank you so much. Call me Claire, I said. And good luck, Emily. Go build your empire. After we disconnected, I sat there with my coffee, watching the sunrise paint Manhattan gold, and felt a sense of peace I'd never known in my first life. I'd saved myself. And now maybe I could help save others. The years continued to unfold like a perfectly designed blueprint. I won more awards, designed more buildings, became the kind of architect whose name was synonymous with innovation and excellence. I dated sometimes, good men who respected my work and my boundaries, but never felt the need to make anyone the center of my universe. I traveled, I created. I mentored young women and girls, telling them the same thing I'd told Emily. Choose yourself. Always choose yourself. Madison and I remained best friends, our bond strengthened by the knowledge that we'd both achieved our dreams on our own terms. We had dinner every Tuesday, no matter how busy we were, and laughed about the girls we'd been in high school. Remember Jake? Madison said one night, wine tipsy and nostalgic. Barely, I said, and it was true. He'd become a blur, a cautionary tale, a person-shaped lesson I'd learned and moved past. I saw him on Facebook, she said. He's on his third marriage, still hasn't made partner. Good for him, I said, meaning it. I didn't wish him ill. I didn't wish him anything. He was irrelevant. Meanwhile, you're literally changing the skyline of New York City. We're both changing the world, I corrected. You save lives. I design spaces for people to live them. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. She raised her glass. To choosing ourselves. To choosing ourselves, I echoed, and we drank. On my 40th birthday, I threw a party in the lobby of my latest building, a soaring glass tower designed for affordable housing, my greatest achievement. The space was filled with everyone who mattered. My parents, Madison and her family, Catherine Morrison, my colleagues and mentors, the young women I'd mentored who were now making names for themselves. There was a display on one wall, photos chronicling my career, me at 17, wearing my prom crown, grinning at the camera, me at 22, graduating from Cornell, me at 25, holding up the keys to my first apartment, me at 32, standing in front of my first building, me at 37, accepting the gold medal, a timeline of choices, each one leading here. You've had quite a life, Catherine said, appearing beside me with champagne. I have, I agreed. Both of them. She looked at me sharply. Both? I smiled. Nothing, just thinking about the road not taken. Well, she said, I'm glad you took the road you did. The world is better for it. As the party continued around me, I found myself drawn to that first photo. 17-year-old me in a green dress, crown sparkling, surrounded by friends. No date, no prince, just a girl who'd chosen herself. I kept my promise, I whispered to her. I chose us, every single time. The photograph smiled back at me, frozen in that perfect moment of victory. I'd forgotten our prom date. After Rebirth, I'd gone alone and won Queen without him. But more than that, I'd won something Jake could never take from me, in this life or any other. I'd won myself, and that was the only happily ever after I'd ever needed.